do encourage you to utilize the chat. I know Zoom fatigue is real. Please feel free to say hi, let us know how you're doing, what you're most looking forward to in Bookkeeping 101. And yes, and hello, I like that. Someone's already utilizing the chat. That's great. So I'm going to get started with a couple introductions and just, administrative items here, and then we will move it over to Connie. Hopefully anyone that's coming in a couple minutes late is just missing a little bit of me talking. But first and foremost, I just want to reiterate, good afternoon. Thank you everyone for joining us on this Tuesday in the middle of the summer to learn a little bit more about bookkeeping and how that can help your business. This is a 3-part series for QuickBooks. So we're going to be talking primarily about Bookkeeping 101 today, why it's important. And then if you're interested in utilizing QuickBooks for your bookkeeping, we have a QuickBooks Beginner and a QuickBooks Advanced happening over the next 2 weeks as well that you might have some interest in. This webinar is brought to you today by the Temple Small Business Development Center. I see a lot of familiar faces on the call, but if some of you are new or this is your first time on one of our webinars, the Temple Small Business Development Center is part of a nationally accredited network of small business development centers. There are actually over 1,000 SBDCs in the United States, and they're funded by the Small Business Administration at the federal level. And then each one is funded at the state level and then hosted at a local university. So Temple SBDC is here at Temple University in Philadelphia. We cover the Philadelphia region as well as Eastern Montgomery and Lower Bucks County. But we also are just one of 16 SBDCs in Pennsylvania. And because this is a webinar, you have the opportunity to join us from Scranton, Pittsburgh, wherever you are. We are more than happy to have you online with us today. And the couple administrative items I just want to get to is one, this is set up as a Zoom webinar. So you cannot accidentally unmute yourself, turn your video on. We do encourage you to connect, collaborate, to ask questions. All of that will be done through the Q&A and the chat. So I already see some people using the chat. I love that. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A so they do not get lost. And if you just have comments or things that you want to share with each other, I encourage you to utilize the chat. This is being recorded, and you will get a copy of the recording and a PowerPoint and a follow-up email within 1 to 2 business days. If you have any other questions about administrative items, I'll be monitoring the chat throughout. And please, we do encourage the questions. Connie has a lot to go over today, and we want to make sure it's as beneficial as possible for you. So without further ado, Connie, why don't you get us started?
All right, thank you so much for this opportunity to teach Bookkeeping 101. My name is Connie Mitchell. I own Mitchell Business Services. I've been providing bookkeeping services for over 20 years, and primarily I use QuickBooks Online. This Bookkeeping 101 course is, you're not going to learn it all. I can't teach it all in 1 hour. So please, if you have some kind of burning question, put it in the Q&A now and give me a chance to read that question and possibly answer that question today. The bookkeeping is more like the engine in the car. So this is the details of how bookkeeping works. And now with the software like QuickBooks, FreshBook, Wave, Soho, that's more like just driving the car. And so all this bookkeeping manual debits and credits has pretty much been automated, but it's good to understand what's happening under the hood. So that's what this class is all about. And then ideally, the end result, driving your car is really getting from point A to point B. The point A to point B in bookkeeping is getting those financial reports. So getting a balance sheet, getting a profit and loss, and getting a cash flow, those 3 main financial reports are the results of bookkeeping, whether you're doing it manually, you're doing it with a spreadsheet, or you're doing it with an accounting program. So with that being said, and no Q&As there, I'm going to go click to the next slide here. So again, this is just a little bit about me and my business, and I am available to help. Today's class objectives is understanding your balance sheet, understanding your profit and loss report, understanding a cash flow report, understanding an accounts receivable report, and also understanding an accounts payable report. Bookkeeping, here we go. So bookkeeping, really, what is it? It's just basically recording all the financial transactions of a business. Your bookkeeping needs to be timely and accurate for those reports to be timely and accurate. A bookkeeper can help save your accountant a lot of time, which will then save you a lot of money. Some terms, just definitions: accounts payable is paying your vendors, accounts receivable is invoicing your customers, and payroll is paying your employees. Profits are the reason you are in business. A little bit more about the difference between bookkeeping and accounting. Bookkeeping is really just the recording of all these transactions, getting ready to be able to file your taxes, and they're helpful in the day-to-day business management. I compare the bookkeeper and the accountant, or the CPA, the certified public accountant, as you would compare a nurse and a doctor. So a bookkeeper is going to be like me, helping you with those daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, kind of everyday activities, where your accountant or your CPA is going to come in with those higher level skill sets. Their rate's going to be higher. They have more credentials, but they can help you with those long range business planning, tax planning, and they are well worth the money. I highly recommend you take advantage of that. The advantage of using a bookkeeper is that then you save that accountant a lot of time. If you can present a clean set of books to your CPA, then that CPA doesn't have to spend the time going back and cleaning up your books. Again, this is a little bit of just terminology, basic bookkeeping 101 type. What are we talking about? Terms. So an asset is the resources owned by the business. It's one of those accounts that show up on the balance sheet. So it's your cash, your inventory, your buildings, your land, those tangible things that the business owns. Liabilities are debts owed by the business, accounts payables, business loans. Revenues or income is money earned. Expenses are those spending that you had to spend in order to be in business. And then equity is another balance sheet type account that represents the ownership of the business. So those total assets minus liabilities equals the equity in a business. The general ledger is the main source of all these accounts, and it's where all these debits and credits happen. There's 3 main methods of keeping track of all this, using an Excel, in Google Sheets. I actually have on my personal business YouTube channel that's linked to my Facebook, a little do-it-yourself Google Sheets that shows you how to set that up, just like a check register, so you could use it to keep track of your business finances. If you're just starting out, or if you have a very simple business and you don't want to start up the expense of some sort of cloud bookkeeping software, then using Excel or Google Sheets is a great way to start. It's better than a spiral bound notebook, but even that is something. Just somewhere, somehow, you're keeping track of every single dollar going in and out of your business. You want to be able, at the end of the year, have a total income that your taxes are going to be based on. You don't want to mix it up and say some of the contributions from yourself as a cash influx into your business, that isn't taxed, that's a contribution. So you want to have some sort of an organized method of keeping track. And there is a little more sophistication to the bookkeeping method, whether you're using a single entry or a double entry. So with a single entry, it's basically that debit and credit column on just your cash account, and you're keeping track of how much cash you have. A double entry bookkeeping system is the preferred bookkeeping system for business. That gives you this total set of books that then makes it easy to roll out the financial reports. And again, the most common system is the double entry accounting system. It's like the Newton's third law of motion, but it's for finances. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So for every debit, there's an offsetting credit. And then at the end of the day, you have balanced books, and that's what it means. Your total debits equal your total credits. Recording your financial accounts and picking a bookkeeping system, it's pretty much an important decision. You're going to be sticking with it, because once you choose how you're going to do it, then you're going to be doing it every day and training hopefully someone else to help you with all of this recording and reconciling and making sure it's right, looking at the reports, using the information that's on your reports to help you make better business decisions, using those accounts receivable reports to then call your customers and collect if they're behind, using your accounts payable reports to look at all the money you owe and then compare that to the money you have and determine the priorities of what's going to get paid first. This is just a sample spreadsheet where you have your dates, you have your descriptions, you have your different categories, whether they're income and expenses, and then a bank balance. So this would be an example of a manual system or an Excel spreadsheet that you can use that really will give you the bottom line numbers so that you have totals for the month. And then at the end of the year, you would add up all those monthly totals, and then you would have your totals for the year, create the documentation that you need to have your taxes prepared. So at minimum, this is what you want to do. And then you're going to have to understand how to create your own financial reports so that you can manage your business based on your numbers and make better business decisions. That's really what it's all about. I'm going to pause here. I see a Q&A. Tiffany Lawson, tips on preparing financial statements from QuickBooks. Do you recommend loading transactions straight from bank account feeds? Oh, yes, absolutely. I love automation. The online features with QuickBooks and bank feeds are such a tremendous time savings. For me as a bookkeeper, a task that was a normal couple of hours is now a couple of seconds, to be honest, if it's set up correctly, if those rules for those feeds coming into the bank are tweaked to be correct and feed into your business books on an accurate and timely basis, then yeah, it's a button push to reconcile, to actually look at your bank balance, look at your book balance, and reconcile whatever those differences are. Absolutely, yes.
And then I think someone's just asking about what the last column on the sheet is with the R's, I believe.
Okay, so that's the reconciling. So that means in this sheet, some people put a little check mark. In QuickBooks, it goes from a blank column to a C for cleared by the bank to an R for if it's reconciled. So it's just a common little column that bookkeepers use.
Great, thanks.
Mm-hmm. The last step in basic bookkeeping is balancing and closing the books. So that term, closing the books, is a process where income and expense accounts are closed and then roll into that equity section on a balance sheet. It's automated. If you use QuickBooks, there is no closing process because it's date driven. So if you're in the current year, you're going to see your profit and loss reports reflecting those current numbers. If you want to see something prior, it's all date driven. Other accounting reports, or other accounting software, there still is a closing process. And quite frankly, some of those closing processes are a little more complicated, but then they offer a little more protection too. CPAs often complain that it's too easy to change past numbers in QuickBooks, whereas other accounting software really lock it down and close it up so that it can't be changed easily. So that's just a terminology that it's closing your books after everything's been recorded and reconciled. And then, of course, at the bottom, if those two sides don't match, if your debits and credits don't match, you need to go back to your mathematics and re-add all these columns that, thank God, I don't have to do anymore with QuickBooks, because that again is a great time saving in using computerized software. And now with cloud-based software, I'm able to help clients remotely. It used to be I'd hop in my car and go all around town. I'm in Wilmington, Delaware. So that's really where all my clients are. And with cloud-based accounting and the capabilities of me helping someone, I'm meeting somebody in Philadelphia and I'm not getting in my car and driving there. We're going to be meeting over Zoom just like we're doing here. So financial reports, this is the pulse beat of the financial health of your business. So this is your goal in your bookkeeping, is to get your reports. In almost every client's folders, I find the letter from the CPA in auditing their books or in preparing their taxes. One of the first lines is that they're expecting management to provide the CPA balanced, accurate reports such as this. So it's really on management to get to this point.
Connie, before we jump right in, I just have one person put a question about the daily transactions that we just went over, if that's okay.
Okay, so would the basic spreadsheet of daily transactions showing assets and liabilities be considered a single entry system? Yes, if it's just like a basic check register where you're recording the money coming in and reporting the money going out. But if it's spread out like that one example showed, the columns reflecting asset purchases or whether it was income or whether it was expenses, it's a single entry system. But then you can get from those totals at the bottom of those reports and or the bottom of the spreadsheets or whatever, and then you can create the reports. Does that answer the question?
I think so. If it doesn't, please let us know, and we'll move on into actually looking at some of these reports, Connie.
Okay. She says thanks. Good. All right. So the balance sheet, to me, this is the most important report. The balance sheet terms, assets, well, there's a basic equation, is that assets minus liabilities equals equity. Equity equals retained earnings plus net income. Now, retained earnings are the net income from prior years. The net income is the earnings from the current period. Retained earnings equal income retained in the business from prior periods, just like what I said. Budgets, another one of my favorite words. I get up on my so-called soapbox and preach about budgets. Because if you don't have a budget, then you don't have something to compare your actuals to. And if you can then compare that, then you can get into this variance analysis. So when you have a meeting with your team and you're holding other people accountable for meeting your goals and meeting your numbers and say it's higher or lower, it's easier to identify and it's easier to question. Why was it higher? Why was it lower? If you're coming from the point of view of a budget. Ratios is determining the health of your business. So if you're going for a loan and your debt to equity ratio is too high, then a banker will say, hey, it looks like you're already overextended and you probably will not be able to afford to pay us back. So then that will be why your loan is denied. There are benchmark ratios within industries that are published that you can research. So you're not creating these reports in a vacuum. It's actually created in in a scenario where it can be easily compared to other businesses. So this is the report that financial analysts will look at businesses and determine, this is a good business to buy, so they want to buy stocks, and then it's traded on the open market. I mean, it all comes down to these numbers on this report. So, and then this is an example. It's a screen share from Craig's Design Landscaping Services. This is a sample company within QuickBooks. If we have time, I can jump into the actual QuickBooks Online sample company. What's cool about looking at a report on QuickBooks Online is that when I am looking at any report in QuickBooks and I'm looking at a number on a report, as I hover over a number, it will develop a blue line under the number, and that means I can double click on it and drill down. So then that transaction report will come up and it will show me all the items that came into the debits and credits behind the scenes to get to this number. And then even on the transaction report, I can hover over the individual items and double click again and drill down even deeper to that entry form. So I can see, what the bill was that created that expense, or I can see what that invoice was, whatever that original entry form was. And I'm using my fingers like I'm keying on the keyboard. And so that's an example of a balance sheet report. The profit and loss report, the income statement, is going to show all the different kinds of income. And so as you create your chart of accounts and you set up, whether it's in QuickBooks or whatever system you have, if you break down your income into kinds of income, so maybe you have a landscaping business, and so you have your fall business where it's a cleanup, and you have a winter business where you're shoveling snow, and then you have a summer business where you're cutting grass. You can categorize that income, and then it can show up separately on your profit and loss report. And again, that could be something that's budgeted against, so you can project in the future what you expect those income numbers to be. Another cool feature within QuickBooks, one of my favorite reports, is this profit and loss report. And I can customize it in QuickBooks so that it's not just totals. It actually is going to break down columns by month. And if I look at that profit and loss report, say in August or September, I can see all of the months leading up to that. And it's easy to see if something's missing, something's doubled. It's a way to find mistakes or add something that's missing, or recategorize something that's not entered correctly. So it goes back to one of the things I always say is that bookkeeping starts with the 3 letters BOO for boo-boos. And it's a lot of the work that a bookkeeper does is finding and fixing those boo-boos. So you're looking at the reports as often as you can to make sure they're correct before you then use them to make business decisions. And again, this is an example of a screenshot of a profit and loss report within that sample company, where it's showing the different income categories, it's showing the different expense categories, and at the bottom, it's showing that net income. And then this is the report at the end of the year that your CPA or your tax preparer is going to use. They're going to want to see the total income coming into the business from your sales, the total expenses, all the different things you spent money on in order to be in business, and then that net income, the difference between all that money coming in and all that money going out, that bottom line is then what you're taxed on. Then the muddiest of all reports is the cash flow report, because what it does is it takes elements from the balance sheet and the profit and loss report, and it combines them. And it tells you how much cash you started out with, where the money came from, whether you borrowed it or it came from sales, where the money went out, whether you were, buying things and using accounts payable and paying off a loan, whatever, source of that outflow of cash. And then the bottom line, how much cash is left in the business. So although the balance sheet shows you how much cash is in the business, the cash flow report gives a better idea of how that cash and I'm drawing a circle, how it flowed through your business, because your money's coming in and your money's going out. And that management of the cash flow is critical. Of course, I compare it to the water in a pool. And you in order to dive into business, you want to make sure you have enough cash in there or water in that pool in order to survive. Because if you don't have the cash, you're not in business. And again, this is an example of a cash flow report. Accounts receivable. This is a great report if you're wondering, why is the cash balance getting low? And you're looking at your profit and loss report and you see the bottom line, you're making money, but then you're looking at your cash account and you're like, where is the money? Well, it could be stuck. It could be stuck in this balance sheet account called accounts receivable. So if you've extended credit to your customers and they haven't paid you yet, so this accounts receivable report is generally spaced out, current, 30, 60, 90 days past due. And so you can prioritize, who to pick up the phone, who to send a statement to, and you send an email to. In a lot of cases, you just need to help them understand something. So ask them, what can I do to help you approve this invoice? Did you lose the invoice? You need a copy of it. Work with your clients to keep them current, understand your customers if they get behind, so that you don't continue to extend credit to those that are not going to pay you. And this is an example of an accounts receivable report where the customers are listed alphabetically on the left, and then across the report is the 30, 60, 90, and then the total amount that is owed to you. Accounts payable, it's the same thing, only reversed. It's the money you owe. And so again, you're going to manage your own cash flow, and say you're entering your bills every day as they come in, but they're not due for 30 days. You want to be able to run that report and see, okay, this is everybody I owe, and there's $20,000 cash available. There's $50,000 worth of bills that are due. Which ones are you going to pay? And in the in most accounting software packages, if you have a $5,000 bill, you can put $1,000 towards it, so you can make a partial payment. And all of that bookkeeping, all those debits and credits, and keeping track of all of this within all of your reports is done behind the scenes automatically. So this is one of those differences between single entry and double entry, where a single entry system isn't going to give you an accrual type of report, which in accounts payable, you've accrued information, and then you're able to get this report in a double entry system. So this higher sophistication is really much needed in a business that's thriving and has a lot of cash flowing in and out. And again, this is an example of the reports similar to the accounts receivable, where the vendors are listed alphabetically on the left. Going across in columns is the 30, 60, 90 days, and then the total. Why you need all three. Policies, processes, and procedures. Again, I'll get up on my soapbox and talk about why it's so important to have your workflow, how you process your bookkeeping, how you approve things, how who is being authorized to go into your bank account and make payments for you or invoice your customers and do a bank reconciliation. There are needs for separations of duty. Unfortunately, there is fraud that easily happens, especially when bookkeeping is automated and business owners don't care to keep an eye on it. So just a heads up. So I say any bookkeeping system must rely on management's guidance. You want to trust your policies, processes, and procedures. I hate this that I wrote this, but I do it. It's don't trust the people. Although you do want to hire good people, you do want to be able to trust them and make sure they're ethical. But you put that opportunity in front of somebody too often, and people get into financial problems, and if you make it too easy for them to just dip their hands in the till, a lot will do it. So put in place processes, policies, and procedures. And again, people make mistakes, they make boo-boos. That's why bookkeeping starts with BOO. And learn from them. Improve your process, improve your policies and procedures as required. That's my little cautionary slide. And again, the boo-boo, people do make mistakes. So good internal controls, help prevent fraud, and boo-boos is a large part of the job, just finding and fixing. And that's the end of my prepared slides. I'm got plenty of time. I can jump into the QuickBooks Online. Let me stop the screen share, and then I can go into the sample company. So share again. Okay, so this is, let me maximize this. Okay, this is the live Craig's Design and Landscaping Services. So I'm going to come down here to reports and just show you the favorites are the accounts receivable, the balance sheet, and the profit and loss. So it's just a matter of clicking on these, and there's a whole lot of kind of set up reports that you can just click on them and manage your business based on all these reports. And these are the standard ones. You can create custom ones, and then there's management reports that are in a different format. I also want to show you this new button, because it's where if you have something new to do. So Intuit is trying to make one-stop shop for everything that's on a typical day, what you might be wanting to do next. So under this customers, if you want to create a new invoice or set up a payment link, receive a payment, create an estimate, credit memos, sales receipts, all these customer related things would be here. Under vendors, entering expense, entering a check, under a bill, pay bills. These three topics, or more than three things, the paying bills and receiving payments, that's in the next class in the QuickBooks Beginner. So I don't want to get too much into it now, but I just wanted to show you where it is, where you start that process. QuickBooks also has payroll features, so you can pay your people. And then again, the banking, if it's a deposit that's not a receiving payment against an invoice, so if it's just like a bank deposit where you're putting money in, or you've got money from a loan from a bank or something like that, this would be like the other column. So I'm going to jump off of that and jump into reports, and we'll look at this balance sheet. And so here's where I was talking about the number changes, where it creates that blue line underneath, so I can click it. And here's, it says, keep your eye on this, it says balance sheet now. And I want to drill down on this checking balance, so I'm just clicking it. So now it's called a transaction report. So at the bottom of this transaction report, it's showing the balance. There it is. I thought it was 1,200. That's where that number, that's how that number was generated. So this is what's showing on the balance sheet report. And so you can, if you don't believe your numbers, you can drill down and research your own numbers and maybe determine if there's something wrong, and click on it and correct it. So here's an expense that it says it's for Pam and it's legal and professional. So if I want to click on it, so it drills right down to this expense form that the original data was captured. And so I could say, oh no, that's not legal and expense. That's going to be a computer repair. And then I can save and close. And it will still be on the cash report. But if I go back and I can go back to that report summary, and it will have moved. It's not going to show on the balance sheet report. It would show now on the profit and loss report. So instead of it being legal, what did I say? It was computer repairs. So here's $75. So Pam's expense report has now moved. So that's how easy it is to kind of click on something in QuickBooks and change it to whatever you would prefer it to be, and correct it. Any questions? I don't see anybody populating questions. I can't be.
You must be really clear, Connie. We have a couple people
Everybody's
saying it's very
asleep.
helpful.
I don't know, maybe everybody's asleep.
No, but this is great. And actually, I think a Q&A might have just come in.
Okay, good.
Someone says, what is your take on going fully online with your banks? Like, I don't know if you ever heard of Chime, but that's an example that he gave. Do online banks interface with QuickBooks better than, I guess, like a normal bank, like a Wells Fargo or a PNC, or is a standard bank the best bet?
I don't see a difference. I really don't. All the I'll say it out loud. I don't like any of the banks, but they have to keep track of your money correctly. They can't be in business if they don't provide banking services ethically and legitimately and legally and correctly. So if they're a bank, they're probably okay, especially if they do link to QuickBooks, because QuickBooks, I trust their vetting process. And if they're allowing the link from that bank to come into their software, then I'm betting it's okay. QuickBooks is even getting into the banking business. There's QuickBooks payments, and they're offering debit and credit cards and financing too. So, and I'm sure it's not going to be long before I start reconciling to some Bitcoin account. So it's in the future, I'm sure. So yes, I would say yeah. How much is the QuickBooks? Okay, so there's a lot of different answers to that. And what I can do is, well, I'll just tell you, if you go to QuickBooks.com on Google and you look for yourself, you'll see there's simple, there's enhanced, there's plus, there's all different versions of QuickBooks. And so I think the cheapest one is $12 a month, and the plus version is $70 a month. If you work with a QuickBooks Pro advisor, and if they will bring you into their wholesale billing, they have the option to provide a 50% discount to you. QuickBooks will also direct from Intuit provide a 50% discount on your first year. But I think if you go with the Pro Advisor, that discount will last longer. And all of that stuff is changing too. It's not something that I ever wanted to get into. I never wanted to be responsible for my clients paying for their software. But to answer your question, there's several different price points for QuickBooks. There's also, I understand, Wave is free. So I'm not, 100% QuickBooks. I think QuickBooks has run its course. I think there are some better solutions coming up, right? Keeping on QuickBooks on their toes. And because of that, QuickBooks is getting better. In my world, most of my clients already have QuickBooks. So I'm not really at that stage where I'm helping somebody decide which software to buy. QuickBooks already has an 85% market share, which means they've done a tremendous marketing job in telling business owners you really don't need an accountant, you can do this yourself, which I don't think is quite fair, but that's just the way things are. But that's a long answer to your question. How much is QuickBooks? What's the difference with QuickBooks desktop or online? Okay, desktop version has, in a lot of people's opinions, the accountants and the CPAs, and in a lot of their opinions, desktop has a lot more capabilities. So if you're a contractor and you're heavy into job costing, you might want to look at the desktop. If you're heavy into inventory, you might want to look at the desktop. But that being said, the online version, even though it's a completely separate program and it has less features and functions of the desktop, it is where Intuit is focused on building up. So, and there are thousands of apps now that sync to QuickBooks. So their apps are like Builder Trend for the contractor that wants to use QuickBooks Online, because they don't want to have to deal with being tied to their office computer. They don't want to worry about keeping software up to date. They don't want to worry about doing backups. They want to have other people helping them from remote locations, like a sales team or a marketing team or their accounting or their bookkeepers. They want the features and functionalities of an online accounting software, but then they also want more specific needs met for their industry. That's where these apps, these thousands of apps that are out there, that if your needs are not being met within QuickBooks Online, chances are very good there's an app for your industry. So I would then circle back to whoever your industry association is and talk to your people and say, what are you using? And get some feedback from people that are in your industry, or to your CPA or accountant. Another question from Mike: why does all seem so straightforward but feel so daunting? Rhetorical. Because it is. It's bookkeeping and accounting is like a foreign language, and so if you're not used to speaking it, it does feel daunting, because it is daunting. I'm very comfortable with it because this is my world. I'm trained in accounting, my experience is in accounting, and I love teaching accounting, so it's not daunting to me. To a new business owner, I have great sympathies because I call it the hole that you can fall into it and get lost. It's the #1 reason why businesses fail: not keeping track of your cash, not managing that cash. So yeah, it's difficult. Good question, Mike. Tyler, have you seen nonprofits use QuickBooks to the same extent as standard for profits? Yes, and I'm so glad you asked this question. There is a company called TechSoup.com. They have partnered with Intuit to provide nonprofits the QuickBooks software at a hugely reduced price. So if you are a nonprofit, don't buy QuickBooks direct, go through TechSoup. So instead of spending $70 a month, you might pay $75 a year. It's a huge savings. And I wish I knew before I got involved with a couple of nonprofits that I've been involved with for years. But it's on my list of things to do to now convert them from the QuickBooks that they have to a version that's under TechSoup because it's so much cheaper. Okay, that's all the questions.
Yeah, I think that's all for now. And I think those are all really great questions. I see people are starting to get really excited about the idea of QuickBooks. And I just want to reiterate to everyone that while we're obviously talking about QuickBooks today, this is Bookkeeping 101. And QuickBooks, a lot of these questions will be answered next week as well in QuickBooks for Beginners, where we kind of take it step by step from the beginning. So with that said, I don't know if you want to show the cash flow on QuickBooks or anything else on QuickBooks, Connie, really quick, or do you want me to just open it up for Q&A?
I would love Q&A if it's out there. If it's not, I can go back to the cash flow.
All right, great. So just in the meantime, I have 2 quick links I want to send out to everyone. We have about 12 minutes here left on the call. So I just want to remind everyone, first and foremost, thank you for being online with us, and we will be taking questions. So please put any questions you have in the chat. But we will also be hosting virtual office hours immediately following this. So from 2 to 3, Connie will be online with me. And if you have any questions about bookkeeping or QuickBooks, you know, or if you're a little more advanced or you're already using QuickBooks, or you have any of those questions, please do join us from 2 to 3. And I'm going to put that link in the chat right now. And I'm also going to put a link to our survey. So we are required to do a survey after every session that we have. It's so that we can continue to provide these at no cost to you. It's only 4 questions, should take less than 30 seconds, but I do encourage you to let us know what you liked, you know, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you'd like to see in the future. That'll be really beneficial to us. So I'm going to go put those in the chat, and please do put your questions in the Q&A. Connie, give me 1 second to put these in the chat, and then we can start looking at the Q&A.
Okay, and thank you, Mike. It's not TechSoup.com, it's TechSoup.org for the nonprofit version for QuickBooks for tremendous cost savings. Veronica, I'm very new, no business yet, but once I get started, when is the time to start with QuickBooks? Is it supposed to be used right at the start or as business grows? If you're very new to and no business yet, I would not encourage you to get into QuickBooks. Maybe get into training. Like this is only the tip of the iceberg. Even the next 2 classes is the tip of the iceberg. So your SBDC, your community college, take all the classes you can about managing your business finances, how to do your own bookkeeping, how to do it with spreadsheets, and you know what it takes to create your own reports, and then get into QuickBooks as soon as you can afford it. It's not that expensive. It is you know a business expense, so it's a write-off, and it is one of the first things that most business consultants will say that you should outsource to someone else to help you because it can free up your time. But before you do that, you need to completely understand it and take responsibility for it. So that's a very good question. When do you get it? Could you please provide the website for that organization that offers QuickBooks discounts for nonprofits? It's TechSoup.org. And Angela, are you taking new clients, Connie? All the time. And thank you for asking.
Great. Tyler also put TechSoup.org in the chat for everyone. And I did see a couple people asking in the chat for the link to register for next week's session. So yes, that's next Tuesday, the 20th, same time, same place. I just put the registration link in the chat for any of you that needed that. Let me see here. I think we had maybe 1 or 2 other questions get a little stuck here in the chat. Let me see. Yeah, someone said for a small business that's maybe just 2 people, my husband and I, would you recommend QuickBooks? And I think, Connie, the answer to that is going to be more about, I mean, the level of work they're doing and not necessarily the number of people. I don't know if you want to speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah, it's all about the quantity of the transactions. You know, if it's taking you a lot of time to keep track of it manually, then automate it. And the best way to automate it is with QuickBooks. The first thing you want to do is link it to your bank accounts. And so those transactions are then fed into QuickBooks, and then you're categorizing them as to what type of expense it is. So then it will feed in and you can create rules. So it's kind of what I talked about at the beginning, in that, you know, the automation piece of QuickBooks is just getting better and better. So then the actual bookkeeping, the transactional debits and credits behind the scenes is happening automatically for you. So then you get those reports and you have the time and you have the desire to then create those budgets and compare to your variances, do your projections for your cash flow, do your what if scenarios. Well, what if we increase our sales by 10%? How will that impact our bottom line? You know, playing with your numbers. If you're not spending so much time on the numbers themselves, then you're more inclined to then, you know, be a little more creative with your business numbers and have some fun with it.
Great. Someone said, if you own multiple businesses that are all different, would you recommend QuickBooks or a different kind of system?
Yes, I would recommend QuickBooks. With each business, you have a different tax ID number, and so you would have a separate subscription for each entity.
Yeah, sounds good. Someone said, is it good for e-commerce business?
Yes, yes, and there are bookkeepers like myself that specialize in helping e-commerce, because it gets tricky with the sales tax, it gets tricky with the importing from the Amazon accounts and the eBay accounts and the PayPal accounts and the Shopify accounts. And I participate in a lot of the online groups and I hear some of the problems. My clients aren't e-commerce, but I expect someday I will have some and I will learn what those problems are.
Great. And then I know the rest of our series will basically focus on QuickBooks Online, but someone said, do you know offhand if you're able to link bank accounts with QuickBooks for desktop?
No, that's the advantage of having the online.
Okay, great. Well, that was all the questions we had here today with a couple minutes to spare. So, I mean, we will stick around for maybe a minute or so if anyone has a lingering question. If you want, join our office hours. That's one-on-one time with Connie. So you can ask something specific, something about your business that you might not want to share online here. And the office hours are set up as a Zoom meeting. So you will be able to have your video on if you want or not, but you'll be unmuted and you can have a conversation with us if you would like to. And then please do take the time to fill out the survey. And just to reiterate to everyone, you will be getting a copy of the PowerPoint as a PDF file and a link to the recording and a follow-up email within 1 to 2 business days. So please do feel free to review. Like Connie said, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to financial management, but those were all really key terms that'll help you figure out when you're actually putting all of your transactions line by line in an Excel sheet or in QuickBooks or wherever you're putting it, that at the end, what are you getting to at that point? The balance sheet, the cash flow, those are all the documents at the end of the line that are really going to help you figure out what's going on with your business. All right, no other questions came in while I was doing my little spiel, so we're going to go ahead and end the session now. Once again, thank you to all of us for joining us today. Please do take a look at the next 2 sessions coming up, QuickBooks for Beginners on next Tuesday, and then QuickBooks Advanced, which is the Tuesday after. And once again, thank you so much, Connie, for your time, and we'll see you in a couple minutes in the office hours.
Okay, see you soon.